Hello guys, this is Donald's Movies, and today I got another top 5 list. So since at this point we know what the next expansion is, and we also know the release date and all of that, and a lot of people are already wondering what is coming next, what is coming after Worlds of Draenor. Now expansion wise, there is almost infinite amounts of speculations, but I will just give you the most popular ones and also the most possible ones. Now, I won't really go into specifics, I will only cover the main concept of the expansions and what could possibly happen in them, what sort of races and classes might be available and all of that stuff. However, as I said, I won't be going into like crazy details, no one really knows, and these are just like vague speculations. And since Blizzard promised almost yearly expansions, a lot of these might even be true, or at least very close to true. Maybe it will be similar to the concept I just said. Alright, so without further ado, let's just get into the list. Number 5. New Continent Expansion. Now this one I mentioned in my 5 speculations video, and it is really interesting when you think about it. I mean, right now we know how the map of Azeroth looks, like there is Maelstrom in the middle, you got Kalimdor, you got Eastern Kingdoms on the sides, and you got Pandaria and Northern on the top and the bottom. But this is just a flat map of the world that we know of. We don't really know what the world really looks like, and every time you travel from Kalimdor to Eastern Kingdom, you travel towards the Maelstrom, but never the other way around, and it is said whoever sails in that path never really returns, and no one really knows what's going on in there. There could possibly be an entire new undiscovered continent, maybe it's extremely hostile and whoever sailed there was trapped or killed. Or maybe there is something so good there, so everyone stayed there. Or maybe they were lost in the sea or lost in some sort of a jungle or something. So there are a lot of speculations going on. I personally think there is another continent on there, and that we can discover a lot about Azeroth that we thought we knew already. And that could be perfect expansion for the future. However, on BlizzCon 2013, I believe, it was confirmed that Uldor globes were inaccurate, and the dev team always discusses the possibility that something can really be there, that there is an entire new side of Azeroth. And I honestly think this would be a perfect expansion for the future, because maybe people decide to see what's really going on there and get some sort of a far side spell, or send in like a bigger force and discover what is really going on the other side of the globe. However, they can also be new possible races and classes, or just new creatures, or entire new civilization that we never knew of, kind of like the Pandoran, although only now we can discover them. Now it can really be an interesting concept, and not just like Mists of Pandaria, but an entire new like giant continent, maybe even bigger than Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdom. And also they would have their hands free on their creativity, I guess, because they can do whatever they want, and they can make any new class, race, or any new story and all that. And it could possibly turn into one of the best expansions yet, just kinda depends if they do it and how they can go about it. Number 4. Underwater Expansion. Now probably the most speculated one, and that a lot of people legitimately thought would be the expansion after Mists of Pandaria, and it has been hinted a lot of times. Now the famous The Dark Below copyright that Blizzard took, I believe last year, even though it is said to be a DLC for Destiny, and since it's Activision Blizzard and not just Blizzard, that could be in the entire end of the hoax, because it's for like a Destiny DLC. But I honestly think out of all of this one probably has the most potential, the most lore, and the most connections to be turned into reality. Now in 2010, when Cataclysm was released, we witnessed the very first underwater zone, Vashir, and even though it got a lot of criticism from people, it was really unique and really functional in a sense. I mean, a lot of people don't like underwater zones, but in my opinion it was really awesome. You had underwater towns, mounts, underwater flight paths, underwater breeding, and all of these new minions, mysteries, and pretty much the entire thing was like a giant mystery what was going on there and all of that. There's also possibly an old god there as well. Now as well you can find the Naga, there's also Queen Ashara and all those lore figures that we might have to deal with in the future. Not to forget the famous Neptulon and his completely unfinished story that was supposed to be finished in a raid but was scrapped, and then Firelands came instead. So his story is still a mystery and could be finished in a later expansion, heavily hinting that there might be an underwater thing, because they can't just start such a big story and a questline and they just abandon it and never pick it up in the future. I feel like they have to finish it in a way. And when you think about it, Vashir was a testing ground for Blizzard to see how everything would work, just like Time Missile was for Worlds of Draenor. Now on possible races, I can definitely see something Naga related, like fish related. even though they might not work with their character templates like armors. For example, they can't wear boots and all that stuff, but they can always make like different types of Nagas, I guess. I don't really see a Murloc type of a race though, because generally Murlocs aren't very smart and are very primal. I mean, they only do like sleep and eat and reproduce, I guess. And although there are really intelligent ones like the Genius in Pandaria, the Genius are said to actually be advanced Murlocs, and they sort of worked as like a, not really a playable race, but in like an ally race that held everything pretty much set up, like the story, the characters and everything. But looking at the entire underwater thing, it can be a perfect expansion. I mean, it has the location, it has the lore, the characters, the races and all of that. And honestly, I believe we will see something like this at one point in the future. Number 3. Time Travel Expansion. Now, this one is actually being made as we're speaking, and should be released in a few months from this video, November the 13th. And even though it's not just a direct time travel, it also has the alternate universe thing. But apart from that, since the release of World of Warcraft, there was always a potential for a release of a time travel expansion, and Warcraft's Draenor might not be the last one. Now, because as it seems Blizzard likes the entire idea of time travel, revisiting old locations, events, and just history from this point of view. And you can also see that through the Caverns of Time and all the various time travel instances that are inside. But generally, time travel is a really good idea for a game like World of Warcraft, because the story of the game is just so big, and there are so many epic events that were only described in books and texts and were never really made into the game. And it is pretty awesome if you could play through all of those amazing events. I mean, there are a few possible scenarios, like the arrival of Titans, the War of the Ancients, Galakrond, the Troll Wars, etc. So there are many possibilities for these types of expansions, and even the races or new classes would heavily depend on the concept of it. I mean, they can always do an alternate universe thing, just like they're doing with Warlords of Draenor, so they can think of something completely new. So Blizzard would mostly have their hands free on this sort of stuff, so you might be able to get a lot of new and unique things. Number 2. Betrayal Expansion. Now, nothing really crazy or unique here when it comes to zones, continents, planets and all of that stuff, but a theme for one of these expansions could be a major twist, or one of the people we trusted or we thought was on our side betrays us. Now, first and most likely expansion in my opinion would be Sylvanas and the Forsaken. I mean, at BlizzCon 2013, it was asked whether Sylvanas is plotting something and what is going on with her, and they said sort of yes, and that at some point in the future the spotlight will be on her, most likely afterwards of Draenor. Now, also it was kinda hinted in War Crimes as well, when she wanted to get her sister to become an undead so they can rule together and leave all these alliances. And one of the biggest hints, I believe, for that can be seen throughout all these expansions like Cataclysm and Mists of Pandaria. Since the Forsaken started using the new technology, they started to use these toxins, poisons and the new plague and all that stuff, like they started conquering, and a lot of people are even saying that she's the new Lich King, sort of. So honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if we see a Forsaken based expansion, and Sylvanas either forms like a new base, like a fortress or something, or maybe there is like a split faction between the Forsaken, just like Garrosh in the Rebellion and all of that. Also, another scenario could be with Jaina, as really at the moment she isn't the most peaceful and diplomatic person she used to be, and kinda has been heavily scarred by the events that happened recently, so she might try to pull something off. Although I think it's highly unlikely that she will be like the sole enemy, just like the Lich King or something like that, but she might be kind of warmongering, just like she was in that end cinematic of Mists of Pandaria. But generally, a Betrayal expansion can be interesting if done right, and I can see a lot of new like revamps, twists coming up, and also a lot of these old zones kind of redone and kind of reshaped and all of that. And lastly, number 1, the Invasion of Azeroth. Now, I would say this is probably the most popular one. I mean, this expansion has been speculated so many times, and also heavily hinted and connected through the entire storyline of the game. Now, the most likely scenario I see would be like another invasion of the Burning Legion. However, this time it would be kinda different. I mean, the Burning Legion isn't anything new to the game, and is one of the main aspects of the entire Warcraft universe. And it was formed by Sargeras, who used to be one of the strongest titans out there, that turned evil and corrupted a lot of races, destroyed many different worlds, and their first invasion of Azeroth was 10,000 years ago, now known as the War of the Ancients. and their second invasion was not actually that long ago, like 15 years ago, and is known as the Third War. Now both times the Legion was repelled, and yet they still want to come back, as they don't think a force such as themselves that destroyed so many worlds can be stopped by a tiny world of Azeroth. And this sort of an expansion has been heavily hinted throughout the entire timeline, and even recently by Vratian himself, multiple times. Now Vratian is the son of Deathwing and the last uncorrupted Black Dragon, and if you read between the lines, you can tell that he is predicting another Burning Legion invasion in the near future. Now even in the War Crimes novel, he said that he is letting Garrosh go into the past, as that is kind of just a piece of the puzzle that will happen in order for us to survive. Now I personally think this is highly possible, although I don't think it will happen in like the next expansion or something, probably after a few expansions, and this invasion will be like the biggest one yet, and we might be able to see a lot of other figures that we've never seen before. Maybe the Titans will return this time and finally put a stop to Sargeras and his Burning Legion. Maybe Sargeras comes to this world and it will be impossible for him to be killed by just mere mortals, so we'll need like more help, just as I said, like the Titans before. Now I don't really see any new possible races that can be added, but I do see some highly requested classes being added, such as the Demon Hunters, and I honestly think it would be quite an addition to the game. Now at this point, I'm pretty certain that we will see this type of an expansion in the future, and that they've been kind of slowly hinting at it, like building up the entire story for it, and maybe that will be like the ultimate expansion, that will be like the biggest one yet. And I think that they will continue to build up the story more and more for the Burning Legion invasion until the actual expansion is released. And that is all I have for this list. Now I only covered some, and these are sort of my views on what might be next in the game universe. Also, I'm aware that there are a lot of people with different opinions and speculations, such as the Emerald Dream, which I don't see possible at this current point. But something could always happen with that, and also a lot of other stuff, but it's not really easy to fit everything into a top 5 list. I mean, it's just speculations. Everyone has their own speculations and their own views, so I completely understand that. Anyways, do give me some feedback on what you think about these speculations, and also what are your speculations and what sort of expansions would you like to see in the future, what sort of new races, classes and everything you would like to see next. Also, don't forget to like, favorite and subscribe, as it really helps out the channel a lot. And also check out my Twitch stream in the description below, as I stream a few times a week various games, and you can also ask me all sorts of lore questions and all of that. Thanks so much for taking your time to watch this video, and see you next time.